for DemiAura, a new progressive metal band out of Arizona. DemiAura has just released their debut record on Pavement Entertainment. It's called The Ascendant. And Chelsea, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Scott. I really appreciate you being here too.
I say new band. That's kind of true, right? The band has been in some incarnation around since the mid 90s. Is that right?
Yeah, so it's a little convoluted, but basically the original idea for it was started by my drummer Keith, and he they kind of went through a couple name changes, a couple band member changes, but eventually what DemiAura, as we know it today, kind of started around 2013, and just by some of the original members. And so I was the only vocalist they ever had, and I joined in early 2017. Just found them on a Craigslist ad. A really old Craigslist ad, so I wasn't even sure if they were actually even looking for somebody still. But I was blown away, and then I had never been more blown away by listening to a band, especially on Craigslist. You hear a lot of stuff on Craigslist, and some of it's okay, some of it's good, and then other stuff you're like, this was just amazing. And not trying to like fangirl my own band or anything here, but I was genuinely impressed. I was like, holy crap, this is a pro level band. And so I called that number that was on the Craigslist ad immediately. And, actually I texted them first. I'm like, hey, are you guys cool with having a female vocalist? Because, not every metal band is into that, and that's cool, whatever, I respect that. And Keith, my drummer, responded. He's like, yeah, that's actually a preference of ours. So I auditioned with them early 2017. And like I said, they had never gotten a singer to work for whatever reason or another. And for whatever reason, fate or something, divine intervention, it worked really well with these guys, and did a song with them that actually ended up on the album. And that was my audition song. It was called Shining Through. And that was kind of the beginning of it all. They were really impressed with what I could do. I started writing all the lyrics after that. So, 9 of the 10 songs, well, I guess there's 2 instrumentals on there, but all but one of the songs are my lyrics as well. So they let me just have the creative freedom and just kind of do what I wanted to do. And I respect what they wanted to do, and we kind of just made it work. So it was, those guys were instrumental band for a long, long, long time, like I said, different incarnations, maybe a different name or something like that. But this is the first time we've had vocals on the music. So
yeah, that's what I thought. And quite the vocal it is too.
Thank you.
It's fantastic. But that was the impression I had when it hit my desk, and I threw it on, and it's like, wow, this is the upper level. This is this is not just your ordinary progressive metal band. It's impressive, extremely impressive.
Thank you.
So yeah, I know exactly what you're saying when when you heard it. That's exactly how I felt. Now I do notice on the website, there under members, there are 3 photos. Yourself, Jonathan Gabriel Jr. on keys, and Keith Heaney on drums. Your guitar player, at least on the record, is extraordinary. And I understand that that's Bobby Chavez.
That
is he still your guitar player?
He is no longer in the band by his own choice. Yeah, it was just something that he wanted to move on to other projects, and we wish him the best. And he's a phenomenal guitar player. Honestly, the most talented player I've ever had the pleasure of playing with. Probably one of the best in the area. So definitely huge contributor to the band, to the music. He really helped shape the way that the album turned out and everything. So I have nothing but respect for that guy.
Yeah. It's extraordinary. His work on the album is just fantastic. And I noticed there's no credit for a bass player, which is fairly odd. Do you have a bass player on the album? And
yes, it was actually Bobby. So Bob actually was a bass player originally, and for years in different like death metal bands and stuff like that in Phoenix. And then he took up guitar, I guess, for this project. And it's funny because my drummer Keith just told me recently, he's like, I was in a band with Bob for a long time. I didn't even know he was that amazing of a guitar player. And it's like, holy crap, it's like, just comes out of nowhere. So yeah, he played both bass and guitar on the album. We've never actually had a bass player. We would just usually have Bob pre-record all the bass tracks, and then we just pump it through the PA. And they tried different bass players over the years, and I wasn't around for any of the auditions, so I don't really know what happened, but I've definitely heard the stories over the years that
Yeah.
some of them are quite entertaining. But yeah, it worked well. What we had, at the time, it worked really, really well. And so we're like, let's just
Yeah.
stop looking. And it's kind of like what they did with me as a vocalist. Like they literally just stopped trying. And, it was kind of nice because I had just moved from Minnesota, where I was living for about 12 years before I moved to Arizona. And, just had gotten here like pretty much within a few months, and then found them. So they were like, oh my gosh, pretty much we're waiting for somebody to come from out of state because we had exhausted all of our resources here.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that works out well. It
Yeah.
really worked out well for them with you. I'm listening to it and I'm like, you're singing. You're not winging it. It's not it's not just a voice over this extremely complex instrumental, great stuff. You have a background. It's very precision driven and controlled, and you've had formal training. Now, what is your background? How did you come up, and what kind of formal training have you had?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I started out, basically as a kid, just kind of singing along with some of the, like the hair metal band stuff that my mom would play all the time. We always had Headbangers Ball on MTV back when they actually had it, in the late 80s, early 90s.
Right.
And so I was around music, the majority of my life was always kind of geared towards metal and hard rock. But really, I would say I was in choir, all of my years in high school, middle school, and I've had a little bit of formal training. I've taken a couple of lessons with some really great people, and I've just kind of tried to take some of the things that I learned from them, always recorded them, of course, that way I could kind of come back to them later and, just kind of work on it. There's still a lot I wish I could do with my voice, and still stuff that I'm kind of working on. And even on the album, like I finally did, half of a song in a chest voice, which is, I've never done that before, which was really fun to kind of experiment with a little bit. So yeah, I mean, just a little bit of formal training. And again, choir, I think, is probably where I've got the majority of my training. But yeah, I mean, I've been a musician since I was 11. I actually started playing guitar before I started singing, played guitar for about 10 years. And yeah, I figured out I was a better singer than a guitar player because I tried doing both at the same time. And at the time I was really into thrash, and I was like, man, I want to do like some Megadeth stuff and some really cool stuff, with my right hand, left hand stuff going on. And,
Right.
trying to do that and sing at the same time, it just wasn't working out. So I'm like, the singing comes more naturally to me. Let's just hone in on that a little bit. And so that's kind of what I did.
Okay. Yeah. Do you ever see yourself playing like maybe a rhythm guitar role? Picking up the
Maybe.
guitar? Okay.
Yeah, maybe, I'm so out of practice and out of shape at this point when it comes to guitar. I haven't played since probably, 2006 or so. So it would probably take me a little bit to get up to speed, but I've definitely considered. I still have one guitar left, just one. It's my Joe Perry signature Les Paul. So I'm not going to get rid of that anytime soon. It's a gorgeous, expensive guitar. It was my pride and joy. So yeah, maybe, that's good to plant that seed now. I'll think about it.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. That's a beautiful guitar. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was this the band you were in a couple bands before this, similar type bands, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so this is the band that you always saw yourself in?
Yeah, I would say so, because I started out in kind of slightly more power metal, and then kind of got to like a symphonic project that was pretty cool. That was just like, kind of a studio thing going on. We didn't tour or anything, but the prog metal was something that I've always wanted to pursue. And, finding that balance between kind of the modern prog, the old prog is, is perfect to me, because I'm more of an old school prog fan. Like Fate's Warning is probably my favorite of, kind of the big three, Queensryche obviously as well. But yeah, I would say doing the prog thing was just such a natural progression for me as a musician, because I wouldn't have been ready for something like this in my early 20s, when I started out. So I kind of had to get through all that, get the experience, get the know-how, and figure out how to write vocal melodies around, like you said, really complicated music, and have that experience to be able to bring what hopefully I bring to the table, when it comes to DemiAura here.
Yeah, definitely. I asked this of most female singers that are fronting bands like yourself, and the first thing I saw was the video. and I saw it, and you without hearing it, it's immediate. You have that picture, you have that package, and you're a absolutely beautiful woman.
Thank you.
And that's very noticeable. And I've always had this fear that that thing takes over. Do you ever worry about your beauty masking what you're trying to do with your voice musically?
No, because when I get on stage, it's I don't wear revealing clothing. Like the stuff that I wore in the videos, that's literally my stage clothes. So it's like, I try to look cool and everything. And I've got, I'm kind of influenced by Doro when it comes to stage outfits. I love the way she dresses, and she's classy but badass. So it's like, as long as I don't go out there with like nipple tape, like
right,
like Butcher Babies or something like that. And there's a package, like I said, there is a package there that you have to represent well. And I've been extremely lucky that I've gotten nothing but respect for what I do. And I've say 99% of the male interaction that I've had off stage, on stage, whatever, has been overwhelmingly positive and just really cool. Just very, when guys greet me off stage, like, oh man, great job, great voice, all stuff like that. Nobody ever says anything inappropriate to me, and it's really cool. So yeah, I would say I'm not too worried about that, because it's like, that's not something that you don't see me on the front cover of the album. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not like, oh, it's all about me and the rest of the band can just go, be blurry in the background. Like, I hate those photos. Like, so many, female fronted bands, like a chick is like way up here and the dudes are like in the background, like 50 feet. It's like, wow, okay, I guess screw them, I guess.
Well, yeah.
So yeah. And so I love these guys so much. They're my family, and I've always been about equality in my bands. Like, I never want it to be about me, because it's not about me at the end of the day. I'm not a diva. I'm super humble. You won't find a more self-deprecating person than me. So yeah, I'm not too worried about that becoming a thing. And if it does, cool, maybe it'll bring more attention to the band and actually, have people be interested to be like, okay, cool redhead, whatever, let's check this out. So yeah, I'm not too worried about it, honestly.
Oh, good. Yeah. And I love that. And I love, like the Pretty Reckless. You have Taylor Momsen up in front there. She's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
And I hear that a lot, that she's just she's hot. Well, listen to her though. I'm thinking, she is, but it's about this, I mean, it's a package deal, of course.
Exactly.
But I'm every time I hear things like that, I hope that people are listening, because it is, there's so much value to that voice, for sure.
Right. Yes.
What is the writing process for you guys? Now, I know you mentioned that you wrote lyrics and everything. Now, they started before you as an instrumental band, so that's an interesting kind of chemistry that you must have. How does the writing process go, at least for this album?
Sure. So a lot of the stuff, like I'd say about half the songs were kind of older songs that were written before I joined. So slightly different structure. I think only we would be able to tell which ones were the old ones and which ones were the new ones. But basically, those guys kind of write with a lot of improv. So they'll go and jam on something, riff on something for like 20 minutes. And we always record our practices via GoPro. My drummer always has his GoPro in the back, just kind of checking everything out. That way, if there's something that we really hit that we're like, oh my God, that's amazing, let's keep that, we can at least remember what the heck we did. And, kind of try to work on that a little bit and try to flesh a couple things out. So I would say the majority of the music is just written by improv and really, those guys trying to sit down and figure everything out. And then I come in later. I'm slightly involved in the music process, but only in the fact that it's like, okay, you guys aren't giving me enough time for this one verse. Can you just go another 4 bars on that? I should have enough time to finish out my thought, my melodic thought that I have going on here. So, but that's pretty rare. I would say it's mostly just those guys kind of doing their thing, writing the stuff, and then I take a look at it, throw it into Pro Tools. I have my degree in audio engineering, so I work really well with kind of sitting with it and then, plunking out some of the melodies on a keyboard, writing some stuff down, whatever kind of comes to mind. So yeah, I would say it's mostly those guys doing the brunt of it, and then me just kind of, layering stuff when I kind of hear it in my head where I think it should be, appropriately placed.
Okay. Now, you have an audio engineering degree.
I do.
That's a plus.
Right? Yeah.
Wow. Oh, that had to blow them away. I mean,
yeah, it helps.
Sing, and not only that, you have an engineering degree. Wow.
Yeah, it definitely helps because I edited all my own vocals because we recorded everything at our guitar player's place. He has his own studio there. It's where we practiced too. And yeah, so I'd be like, hey, Bob, just send me all those vocal tracks. I'll go through it, pick through it, get the best of every take. And that's what I do. I edit the crap out of my vocals. And it's me. It's not, filled out with a bunch of stuff. It's pretty barren. I don't like a whole lot of effects in my vocals because I don't want anybody to think I'm hiding something. I don't want it like ultra processed or anything like that. That's not what we're about. So,
right.
Yeah, I'm sure that is a plus. I never thought of it from the other side, but yeah, it's like I handle my own vocals. Nobody has to worry about it. I don't have to pay an engineer to do it. It's kind of nice.
I mean, they had to be, you audition with this voice and it's just extraordinary. And then you tell them that you have an engineer and audio engineer. They're going, hey, did you hear that? Pretty great.
That's funny. Yeah, thank you.
Pretty great. Now you mentioned you did rehearsals and recorded at Bob's studio and everything. How is that changing now that he's not playing with you guys? And the writing process, he had to be fairly involved too.
Yes.
Is there do you have another player in mind, or what's the mood like on that situation?
Sure. So as far as rehearsing and everything like that, over the course of COVID and everything, everybody has their own digital audio workstation now. So drummers on like Digital Performer, John is on Logic, I'm on Pro Tools. So we're kind of thinking of a little more remote setup where we write and then just send files back and forth to each other. So luckily those guys kind of taught themselves how to do that over the past year, which is really nice. And then, whatever questions they have, I'm sure I can help them with that. But as far as that goes, that's kind of going to be a little more remote. And then as far as the guitar player goes, my keyboard player, Jonathan, is actually amazing guitar player. And he's going to be taking over that role for a little bit and kind of see where it goes. We'll kind of see, want to retool a little bit as far as like the songwriting process, kind of maybe try to condense the songs down a little bit so they're not, over 7 minutes all the time, maybe have a couple that are like a normal length, like 4.5, something like that, just try to retool things a little bit. And, maybe I'll be a little more involved in the process and we'll kind of see how it goes, but we still want it to be DemiAura, we're still going to be prog metal, that's just how we are. And yeah, so I'm excited to see how it comes about. It's going to be different for sure, but John is a phenomenal guitar player. I mean, that guy can rip. So not worried about that at all.
Pretty good. And it's one of those bands, and I had this feeling from when I listened to the instrumental part of it. These guys, they're all seasoned professional players. I just get the feeling that they put anything in front of them and they'll be able to play it. It's just,
true.
Okay, that's
it's true.
The feeling I got is just they're just so schooled and perfect. And
it blows my mind. And even being on stage with them, being on stage is obviously very different from a studio. And you think sometimes for some bands, like, oh, they sound really polished in the studio, and how's this going to translate? This is going to be a hot mess on stage, but it's the same on stage. I mean, there are times, and again, I'm just speaking from an objective perspective, when I'm on stage and I'm hearing these, just hard breaks and hairpin turns, and it's just precision. And I'm just like, still, I've been in this band for, 4.5 years now, and it still kind of surprises me a little bit that those guys can pull that off even live. And it's still almost as good video,
and I think it's important too for everybody to be thrilled with each other. I think that helps with a band. When you look back and you say, God, those guys are good. And they're sitting back there going, man, she's great.
Hopefully, and I have heard great compliments from those guys, and of course it warms my heart because they're family to me at this point. But it's really important to have that mutual respect and admiration for each other, because that's kind of what keeps it real, and keeps you humble. And luckily these guys are so down to earth and so humble, just not an ego amongst any of them. So it really helps to like them even more as people, and they're just really cool guys too.
It's just so great to hear that. Now I noticed you have Steve Dorsum from Images of Eden, drummer for Images of Eden. He's been on the show before with Gordon. Love those guys. They're so cool. Another Pavement Entertainment band. and they're got quite a tour going. Tell me about the relationship with Steve, and they're local guys, right,
Mhm.
to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell me about that relationship and how you got the video going.
Sure. So I know Steve has known our guitar player Bob for 30 years. So those guys have a long, long history together. So that's kind of how I think it all started. And then, yeah, Steve was there literally from the first gig that we had, and it was kind of cool because I didn't know who Steve was. I'd never met him until that point. It was our first gig. I'd only been in the band a couple of months, and it's like August in Phoenix, and I'm in all leather, and I'm just like dying. I'm like, who's this dude? He's really friendly. Okay, cool, man. I'm about ready to pass out now. I don't know what's going on, but that's cool. But it was cool because he was really, really positive. And, Steve, I'm sure he's just a very
Mhm.
positive guy and very, just warm and inviting. And he's like, I'm really going to help you guys. I'm going to, help you guys make it to the top as far as you can. And I'm like, cool, dude. I don't know you, but,
Yeah,
that's cool, man. I mean, like, okay, I was appreciative, but I'm like, I don't know this guy at all, and who is he? And I don't know what's happening, but
right.
he did, and he really did. He helped us through the whole process of doing the video, which he directed. He scoped out all the spots, the cool spots in Phoenix and outside of Phoenix to be able to shoot this. It was all his idea, kind of his vision, and he helped us get the deal with Pavement. He put in a good word for us. Now, obviously, we still had to do the work with making the demo, making the
Sure.
video. We had the whole package, the 8x10 photo, all that stuff sent to Pavement. And the music had, at the end of the day, the music had to speak for itself. But Steve put in a good word for us, and he's like, I know these guys, I trust these guys, I've known them, forever. And yeah, I do think that Steve has a lot to do with how well we've done so far. So we're eternally indebted to that man.
Yeah, oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah, he's something special. That was really great. And Pavement, I think, is, yeah, I think you're in good hands there.
Yeah.
I just saw Puddle of Mud and Wes Scantlin, also on Pavement, and he's a hard guy to please, you might say.
Yeah, just a little.
He's had issues with a lot of things. That night, he had issues with a lot of things, but
Yeah.
he was praising from the stage his relationship with Pavement, and that meant,
Nice.
that said something. It really
Yeah.
did.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
And that's kind of what Steve had talked about too, because, with record labels, you hear a lot of horror stories, even
mhm,
still, to this day. And it's like, yeah, it's cool, they don't do much for you, all that stuff. And you're like, oh boy, you hear all these warnings even after you've already signed. And like, cool. But with Steve, he has always been very positive when he speaks about pavements. And, he really encouraged us to pursue them as well. And yeah, I would say by and large, really impressed with Mark and Tim. And Tim is from the band Soil. So, I think he's the bass player, I believe. So, he knows the inner workings of how bands work. And it's kind of nice to have somebody like that running the show and helping to run the show. And he's not just some suit and tie guy, who has no idea what music is like or what being in a
right.
band is like. So it's really nice. Both Mark and Tim have been wonderful for getting us set up with interviews and just, keeping us updated on the latest, radio station plays and like how we're looking on numbers and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it's, yeah, I'd say they've been great with us for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm always proud to represent and promote Pavement artists for sure.
Cool.
Always had great experience with them.
Nice.
You mentioned numbers. They're quite impressive already. You're in top 30. You're cruising past Gojira, and it's pretty great, isn't it?
It is. It was crazy. Now we always get our updates on every Tuesday, so I'm kind of eager to see where we land, tomorrow. And yeah, that was crazy. I think it was right before the album dropped. We were like, it was called the Loud Rock Top 30, and yeah, I was like, wow, I have albums by all these bands. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
just it's kind of crazy to see, my band name in there mixed in with all these, giants that have been around for decades. And
Mhm.
yeah, it's cool. It's a little surreal, quite honestly.
Yeah, it's well deserved, and
Thank you.
it's great to see, and that happens with a great label promoting you.
Mhm.
If their mouths were
Yeah.
shut, it'd be hard to find you. Uh,
Exactly.
so yeah, it's pretty great. Your deal with Pavement, no details obviously, but is it a one record? Are we going to get more with Pavement?
Yeah, so I think it's basically, I think it's a 5 record deal, I believe. So
Great.
depending on how well the first album does, You know, if it does really well, I think they you know, help out with some of the costs for the follow-up album and all that stuff. So yeah, it's just kind of contingent on how well the first one does. I haven't even seen the contract in quite some time, but I believe that's how it goes. But yeah, and that's kind of what we're hoping to do is, you know, with the new setup, with all the remote stuff going on, is be a little more focused and not take quite as long to get this album recorded, mixed, out there. And that way we can hopefully have a new album within a year, you know, because we don't want to spend several more years for the next album. And, you know, the more you drag out that process, the less magic it has. And I think any band can agree on that. It gets difficult, you know, when you start having delays and stuff that keep going on and on and on. And COVID didn't help either. But yeah, I would say the process is definitely going to be more expedited and a little more focused this time around.
Yeah. Oh, and yeah, I mean, there's a lightning in a bottle issue kind of thing that happens when you get it done. And, you know, but there's also that remembering the band, you know, you're at 30 something now on the chart. You know, in 2 years, some people might forget the name.
Oh, exactly.
You know, other bands move in. So yeah, I mean, keeping that momentum going, I think is really important. So that's good news. Another video, perhaps.
Yes, and we do have that in the works. Yep. So we, I believe we're almost done with that. So we had actually recorded a song when we were playing opening for Queensryche. So one of our friends is a videographer. He does a great job with really cool stuff with like 360 video work and everything. So he's actually working on that right now, working on a video, the live video, and then we're just going to layer the album, you know, song on top of it. But yeah, that's in the works. And then we're thinking about probably a lyric video, maybe even a little bit after that. Again, kind of like you spoke to, is just trying to keep fresh in people's minds. You have to stay in people's faces these days. You know, people have really short attention span these days. So you kind of have to you know, keep in the forefront of their mind and keep their attention. So yeah, we'll definitely have a couple more in the works here.
That is really great news. Really great news. Now my last thing, touring. I'd love for you to come to Chicago and I'd love to hear you guys play. Is touring an option for you?
Not at the moment, just until we kind of retool everything. And, you know, we're really focused on getting that next album out too, because it's really important for us. You know, we haven't written anything new in a long time, and we're really feeling that itch to do that again. So I would say that's a little more at the forefront of our minds right now. But I love Chicago. If we ever hit up the Midwest, like, I will absolutely let you know.
Fantastic. Very cool. Yeah. Very cool. Well, Chelsea, I thank you for your time, and yeah, let's do this again when you're in the top 10 and you know, getting that top spot.
Right.
I see it happening for sure.
I hope so. Thank you. I like your faith.
It's pretty great. You guys are awesome.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Scott.
Thank you. Take care.
Okay. Thank you too.
Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Bye.